ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول كل بدعة ضلالة.
Now this leads us to another statement here from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and he makes mention of a verse in the Quran which is very important for us to understand. First of all, he says, as for magic and fortune telling, it is a type of assistance that is given by the devils to Bani Adam. The devils come and they assist humans in these issues of implementing magic and fortune telling. And they say the fortune teller, he's informed by the jinn. And as for the magician, then the one who's actually killing people or making people ill and have all those effects, it is the shaitan. Likewise, when people fly through the air or they appear to levitate and all these effects that we see, some of them which are just tricks, some of them which actually may be real because they're using the devils, then all of these is from the shayateen, from the devils. Now here is the verse that Ibn Taymiyyah mentions. He says, وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. On the day that Allah will raise all of them together. So jinn will be raised and the men will be raised. And he will say, Ya ma'shar al-jinn, O gathering of the jinn. So he will address the jinn, O gathering of the jinn. قَدْ اسْتَكْثَرْتُمْ مِنَ الْإِنسِ. You misled the humans. You misled them, you misguided them. And then he says, وَقَالَ أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمْ مِنَ الْإِنسِ. And then those, their friends from the men, so those friends who were working with the jinn, they will say, O our Lord, رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ. Some of us, we took benefit from each other. We used each other. And the meaning of this is that they benefited and used each other for their own benefit. Then he said, then it continues to the end, وَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَنَا الَّذِي أَجَّلْتَ لَنَا. We have now come to the final appointed time that you appointed for us. And then Allah will say, the fire is your abode, abide therein forever, except as Allah wills. Now, there are two things here. One is that Allah mentions that the jinn misled those people from the men. And then those people from the men, they will say that we took benefit from each other. And so the Mufassirin, the scholars like Imam al-Baghawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, what is this benefit that's being referred to here in this ayah? The benefit is magic. It is as-sihr. So the shayateen, the devils, they bring about magic out of service to the men, and then the men give something back to the jinn. And the men, they ask for magic to be performed from the jinn, and when the jinn do that, they then offer some service back to the jinn. This is the benefit that either party takes from the other one. So now that we understand that magic is a collaboration between the men and the jinn, then the question arises, what must a man do in order for the jinn to implement his magic? Right? So in other words, how does a man become a magician? And the answer to that has already proceeded in the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. That indeed they knew that whoever purchases something of magic, he will have no share in the hereafter. So what is it that a man has to do such that he will not have any share in the hereafter? Then the answer to that is that he has to commit kufr, and he has to commit shirk, he has to disbelieve. He has to sell his religion, he has to sell his soul to please the devils so that they will bring about the effects and the influences that he wants. Now, here are some of the things, and these things are not being made up, they are real and true, and I will give you some evidences, some pictorial evidences, inshallah ta'ala. So, here are some of the things that a person must do in order to win the assistance of the devils. Number one, he has to disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This can take place in many different ways. The devils might say to him, revile Allah, speak ill about Allah. They might say, abandon the prayer, leave the prayer. They might say, pray in the toilet area. Right? In other words, a person is made to do things which are humiliating the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you will see these people, they will pray in the toilet area as a means of doing something despicable and vile and filthy. And likewise, sometimes they will put a copy of the Quran, a mushaf, and they will put it under their feet, or they will tie it to their feet and walk on it. These are not being made up. These are real and true things that these devils, that these shayateen do. Likewise, to enter the toilet area with the Quran. Likewise, they might be told to write the Quran with something that is najas, which is impure. For example, it might be na'udhu billah, it could be urine, it could be menstrual blood, it could be other filthy things. Now, just to make sure that these are not being made up, here is a picture of a page of the Quran. This is the page of the Quran. This is a female magician, and you can see in this picture here that she has rolled up the mushaf. She's rolled up a page of the Quran so that this word specifically is showing. Okay, and then on this you can see some signs here, that is menstrual blood. And here you can see it more clearly that this is something that is being used to hold that, and then it is being placed in a certain part of the body, in order so that the menstrual blood can come upon the mushaf. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. And so these are things which are actually found with magicians. These are things that they must do in order to win the assistance of the jinns. Everybody seen that? Yeah. I'll pass it over to if the women want to have a look. Likewise, they are asked to do certain other vile and filthy things in terms of relationships. I won't mention them. Sometimes you see that they will be asked to remain alone in the dark for 40 days. They're not allowed to wash. They have to remain in a filthy state. Or they are asked to be in the state of janaba after relations, and then never come out of janaba. Never wash. Never take ghusl. Remain in the state of janaba. Why? These are all filthy things and vile things that the devils, they want from the son of Adam to misguide and to mislead him, so that they can then start serving him and then make him think that he's the one who is the master, whereas in reality it is the jinns who are the masters, and it is the men who have been misguided and misled, exactly as we read in the verse that we mentioned earlier on. So these are some of the affairs that a person must do in order to become a magician. And once a person has won the assistance of the devils, it is now from this point onwards that he can start implementing his magic and start using it as a, why do people do magic? They earn money. Why? They consume the people's wealth in falsehood. You want to marry this person? I'll do it for you. You want to separate these two people? You have jealousies and hatreds? I'll separate these two people. You've got a grudge against that person? Come to me, I'll make sure that I'll make his life miserable. Right? This is what these magicians do. And the magicians appear, as the scholars say, that whenever you have tawheed and iman is spread and strong in a society, the magicians disappear. The magicians disappear and they go underground. And whenever you see tawheed and iman and taqwa becoming very little and diminished, this is when the magicians and the fortune tellers and the soothsayers, this is when you see them appearing in the society. And in fact, sometimes within a society you might see that it's actually become the norm that magicians and soothsayers and fortune tellers, people go to them. And it's considered to be normal to go to them to get guidance about their life, to get spiritual guidance as they claim. And this shows how misguided a society has become when they turn to, soothsayers and fortune tellers. And that's why we see in these societies, where they are societies of the non-Muslims, you see fortune tellers in the papers, you see magicians advertising themselves openly, whatever type of magic, the trickery, deception, or whether it's the other type of magic. All of this, you see, it is open and widespread in a society and taken as something normal, taken as something spiritual. This is a sign of great misguidance. A society is far, far away when this is the state in a society. Now, what is it? What are the different types of things that these magicians do once they have won the assistance of the devils. Separation. Separate between a man and his wife. Separate between a man and his father. We'll look at these in more detail later on. Here it's just very brief. Secondly, they might try to unite certain people, bring two people together in marriage. They might prevent marriage. They might cause problems for the newlywed. Someone who is newlywed and there is someone who's got some jealousy towards them. They'll get some magic performed, and now they find that the newlywed couple can't really get on together. They can't have relations, or they can't get on together, or they start hating each other. Likewise, a person, he loses his intellect, he loses his mind. He's absent-minded, he can't think straight. A person becomes illness in different parts of the body, or he might be prevented from certain specific actions. All of these are some of the effects that is brought about by way of magic. Now, how is this magic? How is it implemented? How is it brought about? Well, the magic itself, so now we're looking at the process that a magician goes through in order to bring about the effect of magic. First of all, the magic itself consists of two parts. There are two parts of magic. The first part is what we call the base, the foundation. This is called the base. And the second part is called the agent, or the khadim, the servant. What do we mean by the base? The base is something which is delivered. It could be an item of food. It could be an item of drink. It could be some incense or some smoke. It could be knots which are tied on a rope. It could be some artifact which is used, for example, a piece of hair, or a picture, a photograph of someone, or a piece of clothing, a clothing which has been in contact with the body, because they need the sweat of the person in order to get the jinn to identify and do the magic. Or it could be things that people write, talismans that we shall look at here, examples of talismans that you see here. This is what we call the base. This is now the base. So the magician, he prepares the base, right? So this is, as we said, food, drink, he will put something in it, tying knots, talismans, spells, and then what he will do with these is that they will be placed in a certain place, either fed to the victim, or they'll be placed, hung off a tree, or they'll be laid in the foundation of a house, or whatever ways the magician sees fit. Now, why is the magician doing this? The magician is doing this because this is a means of approaching the devils. This is a means of approaching the shayateen in order to make an offering to them, so that they in turn will fulfill the thing that he wants to be done. So, let me give you some examples here. In fact, let's finish off this discussion, then we'll send these sheets out, inshallah ta'ala. So, actually, tell you what, let's pass these sheets out. So here are some examples. I'll just go through them one by one, then I'll send them to you. So first of all, you can see here the different ways in which the magic can be done. Here are some eggs. These are eggs in which someone has written certain numbers and certain symbols. You can see here a heart with an arrow going into the heart. Right? There's symbols involved, and all of this is to do with the type of magic which is intended. Here you can see, one second. Here you can see a lock. This is a lock, and around it is a sheet which has got like certain stars and symbols and Arabic writing which is funny, you can't understand what it means. Here you can see a symbol with a pyramid which has numbers in it, and all of this, as I pass it around, if you were to pick up a book of the Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah, and look at the talismans and the magic, it's absolutely identical. Right? You will see the same triangles. You will see the same squares, the same magic square numbers. It's exactly the same. That's where it's come from. Right? So these are things done by Muslims. So here's one example. I'll pass that through. If you can pass it through and then send it back, so I want to send it to the other side. Here's another clear example. In this example, you can see in the center, this is a square, and each square adds up to the number 15, no matter which way you do it. 15 that way, 15 this way, 15 that way, 15 that way. Again, this is straight from the Kabbalah, from the books of the Jews. Because what they have is that because this originally comes from the star worshippers, right? They used to have certain symbols that represent certain planets. So for example, this number here, 15, and this box here represents, for example, it could be the planet Neptune, Pluto, whatever. And then another symbol, a four-side square, and the number could represent, for example, Jupiter or something, right? And then they believe that there are spirits which are in these planets, and they are invoking these spirits, and they believe these spirits will bring the effect. So you can see the clear connection to shirk in all of this, right? So here, now the key thing is, the important thing for you to understand now here, is that around these symbols, there are names of the Prophet, ﷺ, and there are names of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali, and there are names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, there are certain names they actually don't make sense. These are names of the jinn. These are names of the jinn. Why are they mixing all of this together? It is to confuse the common person. It is to confuse the Muslim. The Muslim thinks, oh yes, this is something Islamic. I can see a verse in the Quran. I can see the name of Ali. I can see the name of, the Al-Bayt, the offspring of the Prophet ﷺ. I can see the names of the companions. I can see the names of Allah. This is something Islamic, is something good. This is how they deceive the people. Really, the thing that is actually creating the magic is the astrology and the symbols and the shirk and the names of the jinns. That's what's actually producing the magic. And the rest is just decoration to misguide the people. Here's another clear example. You will see also a common feature is these 5 pointed stars, which are common, which are tied to the magic, and So I'll pass these through. Take a look. Here's some more examples of where we have a slipper, on a shoe. We have something written on that sandal. Here we have a lock with a key. This type of magic is used when they try to bring two people together, hence the concept of the lock. And then they'll sellotape some written spells, somewhere on the lock. This is an example of a small necklace. This thing opens, the heart thing opens, and within there will be some spell or something written. Yeah, I'll take a look at that as well. And here is the symbol. You can see the 5-pointed star. This is a symbol. It's well known in magic. It is connected to the worship of the devil, of shaitan. They have different names for this, Baal and Bel, and all sorts of things. And that's why in the spells that you see, a common feature is the 5-pointed star in the spells. Okay, so this is what we mean by the base. The base is something prepared by the magician. Within it could be a spell, and you see the very deceptive ways in which that is done. Then what will happen? This person will go and he will plant it in a certain place, and then he will invoke the jinn. He will call out to the jinn whose assistance he has already won. The jinn whose assistance he has already won. And then he will call out and he will say, he will make an invocation. He will say, oh so and so, entrust from me this talisman and implement it. Right? He will convey it and he will ask for the jinn to implement it. So now we're going to move from the world of men to the world of the jinn. Right? So this is what's taking place on the side of the world of men. Now when we move to the world of the jinn, amongst the jinn, just like amongst the men, you see there are kings, there are leaders, there are rich people, there are powerful people, then there are the low people. We find this amongst the men. Likewise amongst the jinn, it is exactly the same. It is exactly the same. There are very strong, powerful jinn at the top, the ifrit. Then there are levels, there are kings amongst them, there are leaders amongst them. Then as you go further down, there are smaller, average jinns. So what happens is that this magician who's won the assistance of the higher jinns, these higher jinns are the ones who are intent on misguiding mankind. When they receive the talisman and they see that this individual has now done some act of shirk and kufr, go and sacrifice a chicken to so-and-so, go and do such and such, get some blood, they'll be told to do certain actions which comprise shirk. Right? So you'll see they'll be doing all these funny actions. Once the magician has done that, and that's why the magician You will see him always to be like someone filthy and living in the dark and having all sorts of these weird, funny things. We'll look at the signs later on. And so he comes, he does that, and then the jinn, once he's seen this person has committed this action, he will then delegate a weaker, smaller jinn and say, right, you must go now and go inside this person. So another jinn now is delegated to go and to implement the actual magic. So now this person, this jinn, he goes to the target, he goes to the individual, and whatever is the desired goal, he has to implement that goal. So for example, separate this man and woman. So this jinn will come, and jinn, as you know, they have the ability to enter people, play with their senses, the physical senses, they can play with their mind, play with their imagination. The jinn, they can actually do this. We don't understand, we don't know the reality of the jinn, but this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way He has created them, they can bring about these effects and influences. So for example, he makes the husband to start seeing his wife in a way that his wife is not even like this. Or he starts smelling things that are not even there. Or he starts having these feelings of dislike and hatred because his emotions are being played with. So all of this now begins to take place in a person. He might feeling a pain in his stomach, in his leg, in his arm. And it's actually a jinn who's gone inside his body and is playing, with the organ or with his nerves or with his senses. And this is how it is. This is how the magic is now brought about.